Welcome to episode 16 of VR Roundtable. My name's Anthony. I am one of the hosts of VR Roundtable, and we, of course, have Gary coming to us live from the United Kingdom. Gary, how has it been, man? The holidays and all this, what's going on over there?
Yeah, it's been pretty good. It's been quite warm over here actually, but yeah, I've had a good break off of work, so that's the main thing. And I played a little bit of VR, although I've been away in London for the last few days. So yeah, I've missed it. I haven't had a chance to get back into any virtual reality just yet, so I'll probably be doing that after the show, I would think.
All right. And of course, we have Steve coming live to us from Louisville, Kentucky. Steve, how's it been going with your holidays?
It's been going really, really, really good. Still in the middle of it. Got a few more days off, and should have a little more time to play some games. I haven't had too much time to play over the holiday break thus far because of family and all that, but I did get to do some demoing, which is always enjoyable.
Cool, cool. All right. So for this episode, we don't have a ton of stuff for you this week. As you know, our last episode was a 3-hour marathon where we covered the best games of 2016. And if you want a marathon show, that's a great one to go back and check out. This show's probably going to be a little bit shorter. We do have some news to cover. We will get into some what you've been playing, although we don't have a ton of new stuff there. And then we'll just see where that leads us. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these news stories. I'll go ahead and start off with one story. You know, one big story I did see was, I don't know if you guys saw this, but there was a super data, a report that came out that was kind of talking about consumer awareness, at least here in the United States. I'm pretty sure that this poll was strictly people in the USA. And what they did was they polled a number of people and asked them a number of different questions about VR to kind of gauge how much awareness they really have for virtual reality in general and specific virtual reality brands. And so one of the questions that was asked was, what is the frequency in which American consumers hear about VR? And 45% of the people that responded said that they never hear about VR. 32% said on occasion, and 23% said often. Now, if you add those numbers up, it's more than 100%. So I'm not sure exactly how that works. Maybe you could have multiple responses or whatever. But when this came out, it's kind of like, man, not a lot of people still know about VR. We think that everybody knows about VR, but there's still a lot of people that are completely clueless. And then another question that they had was the awareness level of the various brands. And so PlayStation VR had 28% awareness. Oculus had 22. Gear VR had 21. And then the HTC Vive was in last place with only 5% awareness. So I'll kick it over to Steve. Steve, did you see this news report? And what is your take?
I saw it, and if I'm naturally a skeptic, and if you take any type of poll, especially given the recent elections here in the States, that the polls can often be wrong. You have all sorts of bias. Who are they polling? Where, what were their polling methods? So I really can't put hardly any stock into this. I think it's interesting, and I'd rather have had seen this data than not, but I don't think it really tells us anything true. Like, for example, the Oculus had much more awareness than the HTC Vive, according to this. However, we know the Vive has sold more, or if anything, we know they've sold about par. So if the awareness is that different by a 4-fold magnitude, then why are they selling roughly on par? So I take it all with a grain of salt, really. I mean, I guess it's good that someone's doing the trying to crunch the numbers and get the information out there, but I'm not sure how much it truly means in the big picture.
Okay. Gary, what about you? Did you see this story at all, and what you're thinking?
Yeah, I did briefly take a look at this, and it's, I mean, if we do take these figures as being accurate and they're 100% accurate, and it's surprising. I mean, it's very surprising. If 45% of people are responding with never to the question, what is the frequency in the American consumers who hear about VR? So 45% of people of consumers have never even heard of VR. That, to me, that's very surprising. That doesn't make any sense, really. I would think, even in passing, even just from these Samsung adverts and things like that, you would think that they would have at least heard of it. Even if they don't know what it is, they would have heard of it. But yeah, I don't know. I'm a little bit like Steve, I guess. I don't really know how much stock to put into these figures. Just taking these figures into personal experience as well, just thinking about the people that I speak to about virtual reality. I mean, some of them haven't heard of it. I think they've heard of maybe VR, but they don't necessarily know what it is. But I can't really apply the numbers that are on this to my real life sort of experiences when talking about VR to people. And I guess part of that could be because I talk to them about VR. So from that point on, they then know what VR is, and that then they'll ask me questions about it. And also, yeah, this HTC Vive, only 5% awareness. It's a little bit confusing, but then again, even though they've sold similar numbers to Oculus Rift, the HTC Vive, I suppose, polling people who know about VR and are interested in VR, the split could probably be something like 50-50 between them because of the numbers that they've sold. Talking to general consumers, it might be a little bit different. And also, I was reading something on the subreddit about this, where one guy posed the question that this could have been something to do with the way these questions were asked to consumers, because Oculus, they don't mention the Rift in these figures. They just say Oculus is a brand, so the Oculus brand, and this is closely tied to Gear VR anyway. So they could have said, we know Gear VR is out there in millions of numbers, so if they were to just say, have you heard of Oculus, not necessarily the Oculus Rift headset, but Oculus, then they may just have some kind of familiarity with that logo or something to do with that from the Gear VR. So that could make a difference in the figures that are reported here, but I don't know. And again, we don't know exactly how these figures were attained, so we'll have to sort of see what happens.
Yeah, we did have that one episode of South Park where it was the Oculus Rift. So I think your point stands entirely true, that there's probably better name recognition with the Oculus just in the general public.
Well, you know, the 45% that have never heard anything about VR, I know that does sound kind of shocking, but if we think about, like, if you went to your average neighborhood and you just rounded up 100 miscellaneous citizens, you know, all the way from grandmas to a few people that don't even speak English, just everyday people, I don't think it's that bizarre that 55% of them have heard about VR and 45% haven't. Because, like, well, my mom, you know, I thought about my mom, like, but my mom has heard of VR. You know, she's seen some news stories about it. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people out there that just probably aren't aware of this stuff. I think if you polled people under the age of, say, 50 and asked them if they've ever heard of VR, I think the numbers would be really high. The other thing that kind of jumped out to me, PlayStation VR has the most awareness, which is interesting because they haven't spent a ton of money on marketing. You know, we don't see PlayStation VR commercials all the time. The only thing I remember is those Taco Bell commercials when they were giving away PlayStation VRs. And then they have one short commercial that is the Star Wars PlayStation VR commercial, and a couple of other little things here and there, but they really haven't done much advertising. If anything, if I am Gear VR and I see this report, I'm like, man, we're spending all this money on commercials and we don't have more awareness than PSVR, you know. And then the HTC Vive 5% makes perfect sense to me. This is an $800 product. HTC has done zero advertising on television. I don't think Oculus has either. But with Oculus, because of the whole Facebook thing, I think you do have people that have no interest in VR heard about Facebook spending $2 billion, and they might still have some familiarity. Oh, yeah, the Oculus. I think I heard a news story about Facebook, blah, blah, blah. But with the HTC Vive, the only place you ever see advertisements is online, and only if you're really in like gaming areas, and then you see those advertisements. So I don't think it's super, super shocking. Let's send it over to Gary for our next story. Go ahead and pick a story, Gary.
Yeah, well, we could talk about this one, that the fact that Oculus have just acquired an eye tracking company called the iTribe. So I don't know too many details on this one other than that headline, really. But obviously, it makes you aware of the fact that all these companies now are generally looking towards this eye tracking technology so that they can apply foveated rendering. And it's all cutting down on the power required for PCs, and this is really the big advantage of this. So you need, if they can get it down to where they only have to render a small portion of the screen to a very high detail level, then it's going to cut down a great deal on the processing power of the PC, and that's going to mean that more people are going to be able to get VR without having the need to upgrade their PCs. So this is going to just increase the consumer base of all these VR headsets. So you can see why they are going for this. But this is the first move that we've seen from Oculus, really, to go towards this eye tracking sort of route to help out with this kind of thing. Steve, did you see this one?
Very briefly. I didn't follow it as much as you, and it's kind of, to me, it falls in the norm of just kind of technology acquisition that a lot of companies do, and it shows the research that we kind of know has been out there and the direction that these companies want to take to try to leverage and gain efficiency in the computing space. So it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I think personally, I think we're going to be seeing this a lot more. And who knows, maybe HTC will start to go towards this kind of route as well. But it's just a big thing to help with the amount of people that can use these expensive VR headsets that require an expensive PC. Anthony, what are your thoughts on this?
I haven't read this specific story, but is it actual eye tracking? Like, are they going to have cameras tracking your pupils, or?
As far as I know, that's sort of the gist of the article. I only briefly scanned the article, to be honest, but that's sort of the gist. And that seems to be where we're going in general with some of these HMDs anyway. They're not all focusing on it, but there are some HMDs out there that do focus on that.
Yeah, my biggest question with it is, okay, that's great, but how long is it going to take for you to get that into an actual consumer product? And so you kind of have to hope that they've already been working together for a while secretly, and this is just an official unveiling of this, and that hopefully this technology could be on track for CB2, but we don't know. I mean, it just, how long is it going to take for all this stuff to happen? I've heard a ton of various eye tracking stuff, and it all sounds awesome. But is this like 5, 6, 7, 8 years away, or is this like 2, 3 years away? So that's really my only question about that.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think that this is probably close to being 5 years away than 2 years away, or 2 or 3 years away. But it's something that they can work towards in the long term. And we've only just got these headsets out, so it's good to see them sort of looking towards the future as well as where they're going to be going. Okay, is there any other news stories that you saw at all, Steve?
Well, we have our first Lighthouse compatible device. The $300 gun, I think they call it the Anthem or something of that sort. So again, I don't have too much to say about it, or Athena, I'm sorry. We don't have too much to say about it, but it shows good positive direction, and I think it's pretty good that we have a gun accessory, and it's kind of interesting because Sony has Farpoint coming out, which it has the gun accessory as well. But I'm sure it being a Lighthouse track gun, that the experience is probably going to be much better. Whereas the one for Sony, I believe the Move controllers just kind of snap into it. So either way, really not not too much to say. Just the, you know, the big kind of caveat to it is the very expensive price tag, which I believe is $299 or something like that. It's $300 basically. So hopefully that's either not true or that it comes down off of that.
Yeah, this news story, to me, it's interesting, not so much about the specific news that's coming out with it, but just we heard about Valve was going to have these seminars basically back September of last year. They were going to have these seminars where third-party companies could come in, and they had to pay like $1,200, $1,400 or something like that to attend the seminar. But once they attended the seminar and passed through the training program that they basically had, then these companies would be licensed to make third-party products that would work with Lighthouse, where you could put sensors on guns, tennis racket handles, baseball bat handles, you know, anything you can think of, like little peripherals that we could possibly use with the HTC Vive and with Steam VR. And this is the first one where we've actually heard something about it, because we haven't heard anything about these 300 companies that did this program way back in September. The downside with this story is this company Ilium that is making this Athena gun. They're saying that it's not necessarily going to hit until December 2017. And I read a little bit about it, and the CEO was basically saying, look, I'm going to say December 2017 because I know we're going to have it by then, but we're going to hope to have it maybe summer of 2017, but I want to be cautious about it. So I'm going to say December 2017. But I don't know about you guys, but I was kind of excited when I first heard about this training thing, and I thought there would be a flood of all kinds of weird little gizmos and gadgets that might have tracking sensors on them, you know, maybe gloves, who knows what they could come out with. I'll kick it over to Gary. Gary, what do you think about, I mean, do you remember this story about 300 companies and products that would have Lighthouse sensors? Whatever happened to all of that?
Yeah, I do remember seeing this piece of news a few months ago, and it's I'm sure we will be getting there over the next, hopefully the next few months. And who knows, at CES, they could have been holding back. A lot of these companies may have been holding back to associate themselves with HTC, because we've got CES coming up next week, I believe. And it could be that we're going to be getting a lot of announcements at that time, and also in the following months as well, because these companies that were involved in this, we all know the length of time that it takes to develop certain things, and it may have just been the fact that they needed a long lead time. They may have not been particularly ready to announce anything yet, or they may have been holding back just to announce it all together at CES, get all on board under HTC's wing. And so they're in a position then to show it off to all their customers, to all their buyers, and show this is what we've got. This is the kind of innovation that is coming out of all of these companies. So who knows, that could then net them more investment in the long run as well. So I'm excited, and like I say, over the next few months, I'm hoping that we will hear a lot more announcements of companies similar to what we're hearing here.
I have a concern a little bit with it, though, in that fragmentation, basically, or universal support. So if HTC and or Valve makes a controller, they can plug it into the root, for lack of a better word, just, you know, put it into Steam VR, for example. Whereas if a third party is making this, how does, let's say maybe this third party, let's say Ilium is working with Onward, and, you know, so they get the gun support in that game. But what if you want to play it in Serious Sam? What if you want to play it in, well, I guess it really wouldn't apply to Space Pirate Train or anything. But my point is how is this going to work if it's a true third party? How is it going to work without a lot of interaction with Valve and Steam VR or whatever the main front end that you're using? So I would like to hear an announcement that kind of settles that and addresses kind of universal APIs or something of that sort, because the only way to be frank, I wouldn't spend $300 on a gun controller, but, you know, maybe I would $100. And before I drop that kind of cash, I would have to know that it's going to work for more than just one game.
Yeah, I believe the CEO of the company was quoted and said that any game that uses like a gun, you can use this, but that if you want like the recoil and the clip, it has this thing where you can like the clip comes out of it and you can snap the clip back in. And if you want all of that to actually be integrated as well, then the game has to have a little bit of code to take advantage of like the specific features, but that any single game that has a gun, you can basically use this controller. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, the $300 price is prime time. It's like, who really wants to spend $300 unless you're like onward player number one and it's your favorite game of all time and this is like a dream come true for you. It's a very small market. To me, I would think it would be awesome if we just had just straight up handguns, because how many VR games have we played where it's just a handgun? Arizona Sunshine, you're mostly just using a handgun. Brookhaven Experiment, handgun. Most of these games, it's a single handgun, and a single handgun that costs maybe $75 and has a little bit of recoil, maybe a little bit of extra rumble that's added to it would be pretty cool. But if everything's going to be 300 and 400 and stuff, it's going to be a limited market. But well, at least we're finally hearing about something. That's the most important part. All right. One story that I saw that I thought was pretty interesting is Tim Sweeney of Epic Games. We've all heard a little bit of this and that from Tim Sweeney of Epic Games. He's been pretty outspoken. He's talked about Microsoft doing a lot of shady type of things with Windows 10 and the Windows 10 store, and how they're trying to lock developers out in a like subliminal type of way. And he's said a lot of controversial stuff about all kinds of things. But anyway, he was recently interviewed by somebody, and Upload VR had a little story about this. And he was talking about online harassment, and especially online harassment in virtual reality, because we've heard the stories like Rec Room and stuff like that, where there's this different kind of harassment that can happen in VR where with the hand movements and stuff, you can do some different type of things. And one of the interesting things that he commented on is he actually believes that the future of virtual reality could possibly really eliminate a lot of this harassment, because eventually what's going to happen is you're going to have tracking of your facial muscles and like smiles and frowns and different facial reactions that people have. That's going to be conveyed with your virtual avatar. And so if you're in some game, like let's say you're some snotty teenage kid and you play Call of Duty and you're always yelling racial obscenities or just whatever, dropping F-bombs left and right, calling people names and kind of making fun of people. It's one thing to do that and not be able to see any kind of reaction from the person that you're yelling at and screaming at. It's a whole nother thing when you see that person and you see their facial expressions to what you're yelling and shouting at them. And so it's like, imagine you're on a playground and you're a kid and you say something to some other kid and the kid feels really bad about it. As a human, you do have that empathy where you see their facial expressions. You're like, oh man, I didn't really mean to hurt your feelings that bad. I didn't mean to do that, and so there's this natural human reaction to seeing other people's facial reactions that eventually that is going to come to VR, and that could actually solve a lot of our online problems that we have with the fact that it's just a faceless thing and you can get away with all kinds of stuff. So why don't I send it over to Steve first? Steve, what is your thought about this? Do you think this will really be a factor long term when we do have this facial capture?
I think it'll depend on the assaulter, I guess. If you have empathy, I could see what Tim is saying coming to light. On the flip side, I think it may cause those out there that are inherently nasty within to just get worse. You know, it's like that's kind of fueling their whether it be racism or sexism or whatever it is in question. I think it could actually fuel that and make them want to do it more. You know, so I'm not sure I agree with him. I think it's a very interesting subject, and it's something I'd like to explore more, just the whole nature of assault and harassment in VR, because it's a fundamentally interesting concept when there is an easy escape button, which includes just taking the headset off. But so, but more to the point, I'll just kind of reiterate that I'm not sure he's correct, but I think at least in some ways he is, and for some people he is absolutely correct, and others I think it may make him more monstrous.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. The fact that griefers could actually have even more fun griefing when they see people's expressions. But yeah, it would take a pretty mean individual to go in that direction, but we know they do exist. Gary, what's your feelings on this?
Yeah, I think a majority of people are not inherently nasty or anything like that, and they don't want to really hurt people. And I think it will. I think as technology improves to the point where we're getting more realistic, I think it's to do with like the models as well. If we get realistic looking people within VR and more realistic, like the expressions are being represented accurately of what we're actually doing, then it could make a big difference. And I think as the technology of that increases, so we get steadily more realistic looking people, and the technology of the expressions as well slowly increases, we'll have a drop off of people that are griefing and going after people like that. I think that this type of thing will affect them as we get closer to more lifelike people. But yeah, I don't think it's going to stop it entirely until we get to 100% accurate looking people within VR, and we all know that their expressions are being accurately represented within that virtual space as well. But yeah, I mean, I can certainly see his point, and it's one that I didn't really think about up until now either.
Alrighty, and let's see here. One other little quick story I have is there was an Amazon pricing mistake on raw data. And this happened a couple of days ago, I think it was a couple of days ago. It was kind of late night. I happened to be on Reddit just looking at some stuff, and I saw raw data, 50 cents. I was like, what? And so I clicked on it, and this guy was basically talking about, I think there's an Amazon pricing error, you know, hurry up, grab this while you can. And I didn't actually own raw data. I had it as my 5th favorite Vive game of the year, because I did play it for like 4 days when it was free. And but I'm interested in raw data, and it's one of these games where if it did go on sale, I was definitely going to grab it. So I saw this and I was like, man, I clicked on it and it went to Amazon, and it's like, yeah, this really looks to be a pricing error. So I went ahead and bought it. And 50 cents, you know, I'm a big spender, but to some degree, I felt a little bit slimy, a little bit scummy for doing this. And there was kind of some controversy back and forth within the thread about people saying, you know, you guys really shouldn't do this because Survios, the developer of raw data, they're the ones that are actually going to get screwed out of this. A lot of people were saying, well, no, Amazon, it's Amazon's fault, and Amazon will cover the money. And then other people say, no, it doesn't work like that. The company signs a deal with Amazon, and they have to take into account that there could be pricing errors. But what happened in this thread is the CEO of Survios actually hopped into this thread, and he basically said, look, guys, don't worry about it. If you buy this for 50 cents, have fun, get it while you can, you know, go ahead, grab it. And he said something about somebody at Amazon having fat fingers and accidentally, you know, screwing this up a little bit. So I don't feel super, super bad because the CEO wasn't like in tears over the whole situation. But basically, I'll send this over to Steve. Steve, am I a scumbag?
Abso-flippin'-lutely. And the reason being is you didn't text me to let me know. I'd have bought the damn thing. Heads up next time.
I thought you already had it.
No. I didn't have it. So I just checked on Amazon. It's the first I'm hearing about it. I just checked on Amazon and it is back up to $32. So yeah, you're a scumbag. But to really get to the root of your question, you know, it's very similar to the piracy, you know, the big piracy debate and DRM and things of that nature. You weren't going to buy it otherwise. You know, unless it was a substantial sale at $32, you weren't going to buy it. So you're not really taking money out of their pocket. Maybe you're adding a little server load to them, but you know, at the end of the day, you weren't going to buy it for $32 or $39. So you're not a lost sale for them. Now that is morally ambiguous, you know, if you apply that thought to piracy. But in this case, no, I don't think it makes you a scumbag, and I hope that Amazon does provide restitution in some form to Survios, given the you know, the size of each respective company and the impact that it could have to Survios itself. But in the end, you know, that's their user base has increased. I don't know if they're planning any DLC or not. So it may, in the end, it may work out for them. I think more people playing the game is a benefit to them. Surely they want to make those sales and financially be rewarded. But you know, the growth of them as a developer, this could have long-term dividends for them. So I don't think it's too bad.
Gary, what about you? Am I a scumbag?
Well, it's difficult to say, really. But in this particular case, I don't know. I don't think you are. The problem is we've all taken advantage of pricing errors and things like that. There's very few of us that have not had that opportunity and thought, we'll go for it. It's not our fault. We're not doing anything wrong, really. But like you say, Steve, it's morally ambiguous, I guess. But it's a difficult call. And with this as well, it's a game where it can thrive on multiplayer. The multiplayer aspect of this game is quite important, and people play through this game in co-op. So it could help it in the long run. Who knows? We don't know all the figures and data and things that are going to come out of this, but it's difficult. And you do want these VR devs, because they're in this at the early stage, and they're trying to give us some decent content, as Survios are. But it's just a tough call. It is a tough call, and I can't say I'll blame you for taking the offer, if I'm being honest.
You know, there was this one guy that was in that thread who bought 20 keys, which I guess is the maximum that you're allowed to buy. And at first, I know what you're probably thinking, oh, that is kind of a scumbag. But what he did was he gave them away. He already had the game. And he's like, I already have this game. He bought 20, and then it was like the first 20 people that request a key, he'll send them a key. And so all these people were like, thanks, man. Thanks so much. You know, thanks for the free game, blah, blah, blah. But I'm sure there might be a handful of people out there that did buy 20 keys, and they're up on eBay for like, you know, $20 each or something like that. Somebody turned it into a profiteering enterprise. And if you're doing that, that is a little bit maybe on the scummy side. But yeah, I don't know. You know, pricing errors happen, and what can you say? Okay, let's see here. Do we have any more stories before we move on? Well, let's go ahead and talk about the HTC confirms no Vive 2 at CES. There was a little bit of a scandal here. Well, not a scandal, but there was a little bit of a controversy because some rumors kind of leaked about a 4K headset, but then it was kind of like, wait a minute, I think it's, what do you call it? It's a mistake in the intent of what the CEO was of what this one guy was trying to say. But I'll kick it over to Gary. Gary, what is the deal with, first of all, this Vive 2 at CES, and then also the rumors of a possible 4K HTC Vive? What's going on here?
Yeah, I saw these rumors, and that they seem very soon. I mean, we've spoke about it on this show numerous times about these rumors of a Vive 2 and coming soon, like within the next few months. And I think each time we've said that we don't really think it's going to be any significant difference on the spec of the Vive as it stands now. Maybe a different form factor or something like that, possibly. But to put two 4K screens in there, it seems like they'd be going way above and beyond what any real user could take advantage of at this time. So I can't really see that was ever on the cards, but that's not to say that people couldn't have applied some kind of truth to these rumors as they were coming out as well. So I think a lot of people were thinking this 4K, 4K screens that couldn't refresh at the rates that they need to refresh at is really just a dream. Although I've got to say, having said that, you know, we thought wireless HTC Vives was a dream as well. We didn't think that would be coming out this year at all, and yet we're hearing these things about the TP cast, that it's all genuine and it's got almost no latency. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility. But in this particular case, with these rumors, the Vive 2 4K screens didn't ring true at all. So yeah, they did finally confirm the fact that there's not going to be a Vive 2 announced at CES. So there's not really any big shocks there for a lot of people. But yeah, it's something that I'm sure we'll see coming at some point, but it's too early. It's too early for that to be announced now.
Steve, did you check this out, and what is your thoughts?
Well, when I saw the specs, I thought it was kind of funny. You know, it was 4K each eye, I believe, 120 hertz update rate, completely wireless, and the pixel density from where we currently are with the existing HTC to this new model was going to be like, I can't remember, you know, a 16-fold or a 32-fold pixel density increase. It was insane. So that said, though, I don't think 4K itself is out of the realm of possibilities, and we don't need to actually drive that pixel density natively for it to be a benefit. I'm personally in the camp of hoping that the next units come with a big increase in resolution, even if we can't drive them with graphical computations, merely for the improvement in say screen door effects, or that sort of that dot matrix that I'm personally really sensitive to on the HTC Vive. So being able to have a higher res display, let's say it's 4K, but we're only putting 1200p like the current units into it, I think the result will still look better. And then you're also future proof. And, one of the things that I would personally hate is to buy a unit and then it to be near obsolete relatively soon. So if the HTC Vive 2, was to come out and have 4K, I would like that, because it would hopefully future-proof me for, say, 4 or 5 years, to the point where we can graphically push dual 4K screens with games and kind of leverage that power. It's very similar to consoles. When a PS4 comes out, just using that as an example, you're paying $400 for games that essentially didn't look any better than PS3 games. But now, as the hardware has had time to mature and software and efficiencies gained and able to leverage some of that, you see improvements. And I think similar could hold true in VR headsets. You overbuy for what you currently have, let your PC hardware catch up, and then you overbuy again. So you kind of get in that cycle, as opposed to trying to keep them necessarily in sync, for lack of a better term, with today's technology.
Yeah, one thing I wonder about is like Steam VR, like the API for Steam VR. Eventually, as we do get more and more headsets that come down the line, is on the fly, is it going to be able to determine, oh, this is a 4K headset, so I'm going to enhance this a little bit. Oh, this headset has a 200-degree field of view, so I'm going to allow this. I wonder how that's going to work out long term, but I'm sure Valve has to be thinking about this.
Yeah, or the game itself. You can currently play Steam games on a 1600p monitor or 1080p monitor, or whatever. I know Apple has a new like 5K display that they've recently released. So you can always choose the resolution within the app itself. And another point about resolution quickly is a lot of us are super sampling. Well, from what I understand, the kind of the base Steam VR is a 1.4 super sample or something like that. And then a lot of us are super sampling above and beyond that. Some of us as high as 2.0 if you have like a GTX 1080. So a 2.0 super sample on a base of 1.4 is already nearly a 3-fold resolution increase. So I don't think the hardware is that far behind as what people may think. You know, it's still behind. We're certainly not there, but I don't think we're 10 years from that or anything like that.
No, I do think that there is a problem in the sense that it's always good. I mean, like you say, Steve, it'd be good to sort of bring out these headsets now with sort of high resolutions and things like that, so you can sort of secure your place sort of for the future further down the line when faster PCs become available. I think the particular problem with that in VR is that it's moving so quickly, and there's so many innovations in places that we don't even necessarily know are going to be innovated within that time, that even if you try and sort of secure that and future-proof yourself to a certain extent, I think even individual aspects of the headsets could even then be sort of superseded within that time as well. So that's another factor. But it's something that we all want. This is the thing with VR. Me personally, I'm using the headset and I'm just constantly thinking how great this is going to be in 3 years' time. I'm just always thinking that. I really am, and so I want these headsets to come out as much as the next person. But at the same time, HTC and Valve don't really want to annoy the people, that the consumer base that have already purchased this headset. So when you take into account, when you look at it really from their point of view, it's way too early to bring out a Vive 2 at this stage. They've really got no incentive to do that at this point. Maybe in 2018. That's my best guess anyway.
Alrighty, and I guess the last little news blurb we have is Vertigo, a game for the HTC Vive, was released, and this is a game I was super into. The demos were just awesome, and there was just something about the demos of this game that were really cool. But I haven't picked this up. I don't know if you guys have picked it up. What's your Gary? Did you pick this one up?
Yeah, I did pick this up, but I've been away for the past few days, so I've not really had a chance to get into it. But it is one that I'm definitely going to be trying soon, because I played through the demo on your recommendation, actually, because I tried the first demo very, very briefly. The first little demo that came out, it had a shooting gallery section, and I didn't actually go through the proper demo. I just played the shooting gallery section, and I thought, oh, this is the game. It's another shooting gallery. There was nothing to it really, so I turned it off and I never went back to it. But then the second demo came out, and you actually recommended this to me, so I played through that, and it really was a great. And actually, I went back after that, and the dev sent me a link actually to the old demo that I could download, and I played through that one as well, and both were really fantastic. So I'm looking forward to getting into Vertigo, but I've still not had the chance to jump in yet.
Steve, what about you?
I have not played it, nor have I picked it up. It's kind of on my list. I have a tendency to not buy a game until I'm ready to play it. So unless it's on sale. So if I feel like it's going to go up $10, I'll go ahead and buy it. But other than that, so I'm going to wait till I get it. I might get a chance at it this weekend.
Yeah, that's kind of my take too, is like I'm kind of swamped with a lot of different games that we've got recently. So it's like I don't really need a game dramatically right now, so I'm kind of just waiting on that. But there's no question I'll be picking this up. I know the reviews are a little bit mixed. It's not necessarily budget cuts the game that people want it to be, or like Half-Life in VR or something like that. But it's an indie dev. There weren't that many people that worked on it, and most people seem to be pretty happy with the game. So I'm sure we'll have coverage on that in the future. All right, so let's go ahead and get into what you've been playing. I know that we haven't had an opportunity to play a ton of stuff, but we have done a little bit. Let's go ahead and kick it over to Steve, who has tried, I believe, a new PSVR game, and then you've also tried an app that you've been able to use with the HTC Vive that's kind of interesting. So let's go ahead and kick it over to Steve.
Okay. So I'll keep it in Vive land for the time being. I have done two new things. I got to check out the Portal stories, and I didn't have. I played Portal 2 back on console. I believe it was PS3, maybe PS3. So I didn't have Portal 2 in my Steam account, and I'm sure both of you guys know that there's a free add-on. I believe it was made by the community. Certainly, I don't think it's made by Valve. If you have the base game of Portal 2, and I don't have it, so I never had a chance to play the little add-on. But I had some family visiting for the holidays, and they did have Portal 2 in their account, so we logged in with that and downloaded the free Portal stories. And you know, there's not too much to say about it really, but I just kind of want to talk about it briefly because it was better than sort of I was expecting. They were able to, I guess, use the assets of the Portal 2 universe really well, actually, and some of the puzzles were very Portal-esque. You know, you're you know, manipulating the cubes and using them to hold down buttons and things like that. The only problem is, you know, Portal kind of has the iconic orange and blue portal, and you don't actually go through any portals in this game. It's a teleport mechanic, and then in your right hand, and it's the same kind of teleport that we've seen in numerous games, but then in your left hand is a sort of a gravitational grabber. So I don't really know how to describe it, but if you point at, say, a cube, it'll suck the cube over to your hand. So that's how you move the cubes about. So the puzzles, it's very, very Portal-esque. It sounds like Portal, it feels like Portal, but you don't actually have the blue and orange portals. And that was kind of a letdown. But the puzzles were fun. The price is good if you have Portal 2 and you haven't played it. I know I'm kind of rehashing something pretty old, but I don't think it'd been talked about on the show. So it's a fun little thing, and I'm glad I had a chance to give it a try.
I think there was a sale on Portal 2 recently as well. Like somebody mentioned, if you've never played Portal Stories, you can get Portal 2 for like $2.99 or $3.99 or something like that.
Yeah, I must have missed it because I may have picked it up then just to kind of try this Portal Stories, because, you know, one of the first things that with budget cuts and with the lab, especially in robot repair, where you see how that leads into the beginning of Portal, I was like, man, a real Portal game in VR would be so incredible. And so for whatever reasons, I must have missed that sale. I probably would have picked it up in my Steam account so I could have played it. But Portal Stories, it was pretty cool. Have either of you played it?
Yeah, I picked up Portal 2 a few sales ago, actually, just to get Portal Stories, but I didn't actually get a chance to play it until probably a month ago, something like that. And I played through it in one sitting, and yeah, I think it's a great game. I said before, actually, I think I mentioned it on the show, that I've never actually played a Portal game. So I've played through this game, Portal Stories, without actually ever playing a Portal game, although I know I've got Portal 2 now, so I really need to get into that. But no, just for this VR game on its own, I was really impressed. And I think it was better than I was thinking as well, from what I heard people reporting on this just after it came out. It was a really good little game. Yeah,
I mean, you should give Portal a run. I don't know if you'll get really into it, because now VR and all that, it's kind of harder to get roped into those types of experiences, and it's more dated. But at its time, Portal and then Portal 2, you know, for me was definitely high level stuff. I loved them both. So the other thing I've been playing around with isn't really a game. So my wife and I are in the very, very early stages of building a new house. And it's going to be a custom house. So I started playing around a program called SketchUp that I've used for years, for going back 6, 7, 8 years ago, maybe. It's been a long time. And in SketchUp, it was, I forget who originally developed it, but then Google picked it up, and Google owned it for a while, and then they sold it off in the last couple of years. But what it is that it's basically a kind of a CAD light. So it's meant for, you know, architects, things of that nature, but you can model a room, or you can model an object, and it's real easy. You know, it's still got a steep enough learning curve, because it is you are able to 3D model, but for a 3D modeling program, it's got a very easy learning curve on it. So I'd already been familiar with it. So I started kind of playing around, you know, as I trying to design this house and choose, you know, how big do we want this room to be? Do we want to make this room smaller to, you know, make this other room bigger, and that kind of thing. And I started to look, I'm like, well, what if there's something that'll export and let me look at this in VR in one-to-one space. It'll help me get a feel for it. And sure enough, there is a company called Iris VR that has a simple software suite that'll let you bring in your SketchUp files, and then it'll open Steam VR and just let you explore it. And Iris is there are paid accounts and you get a trial, but after your trial expires, you can still keep a basic account for free that'll still let you fully explore it in VR. You'll just lose some of the advanced features like being able to move the sun, sort of like how you can in Google Earth. So I've been playing around in this, and so I kind of have all the rooms modeled in the house, and then when you launch into the VR aspect of it, you can kind of walk around it, sort of a tabletop model, like you'll see like a lot in movies and things. A lot of architects will have a tabletop model, and you can do that. And then you can kind of point your controller somewhere on the model, and a little teleport icon appears, and you pull the trigger and you beam down to it. And then next thing you know, you're looking in perfect one-to-one space. And I've put like, drawn a 1 foot by 1 foot cube just to kind of see it, and it's accurate. So I'm able to literally walk around this environment that I've created, and it's pretty incredible. And I've been totally geeking out over it because it's serving the utility of my house design, but more importantly, I'm going through and I'm perfecting things just because of what I want to see what it looks like in VR. And it almost feel like, I'm not a game developer. I've never made a game, but I almost feel like I'm making a game because I can put a set of stairs over here and then walk up them, or change the color of the stairs, change the color of the walls, add a TV here. There are HTC Vive and Oculus models that you can download from the SketchUp kind of library. And I brought the model in, and then I held my actual model that I'm holding and kind of held them up side by side to see how they compared. And it's a very incredible experience if you have use for it. If you're making something, or say you're remodeling your kitchen, or you're building a set of speakers, or whatever you're doing, if you have a reason to model something, and this is all free, you now have a reason to explore it in VR. And it's one of the cooler things I've done. Just because it's so different, and because it has the user-created element of it.
Let me ask the obvious question, Steve. Have you got a VR room in your new house?
No, not a dedicated room. Now, I won't. I'm not going to have the cash to do my basement as we build initially. So I'm going to have an unfinished basement for a while. And in there, I'm going to have the biggest VR thing that the lighthouses will let me do. So I'm going to stretch it to the limits, which I believe you can do more than the 5 meter by 5 meter. I don't know that with a certainty, but if not, I'm going to have a 5 meter by 5 meter. If not, I'm going to have something bigger. So I really look forward to that period of time where I have an unfinished basement, to having the most massive VR space possible.
Be careful with the ceiling height, because I'll tell you what, if I was able to go get a new house, one of the #1 things I would look for is one room that had high ceilings, so I could play stuff like selfie tennis and not have to worry about, smacking my controller.
Yeah, I think my ceilings will be they're higher than usual, and especially before a lot of drywall and stuff goes up. I don't have any immediate fears. I'm digging the basement out at 9 feet, so it should be around there, especially when it's unfinished. So.
Alrighty. What about? Did you get a chance to play I thought you had a PSVR game that you might have played.
Yep. Sorry. So I got a chance to try. Got in via GameFly. Werewolves Within. And there's been a lot of hype on this game on Reddit, and I get the hype. I totally get the hype. It is a very unique experiences, and if you listen to our last show, one of the things that I personally love is a unique experience, doing something different. And Werewolves Within accomplishes that. The one problem with Werewolf, let me just kind of describe what the game is. In the game, give a core setting is you are just sitting around. There are 3 or 4, maybe 5 different scenes, but you're sitting around with 7 other players, and maybe you're sitting around a campfire or something of that sort. And the objective is to you're basically playing this game that I believe is based off of an actual game called Werewolf Within. that isn't digital game. It's like a game that you would play at a party in person with people, kind of like a card game or something. And the objective basically is to either lie or tell the truth, or otherwise manipulate your role in the game and try to sniff out who's lying. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to establish who is the werewolf within the group. And in VR, it works really well because you have all of these menus and the engine and the mechanics itself that are assigning roles. So you're not dealing with cards, you're not dealing with all the problems and the organizational issues that you would have trying to play a game like this in real life with actual people. And so I played about 6 or 7 rounds, and then my wife actually came down and played 4 or 5 herself, and I watched her. The one kind of problem that I had with the game was that it has it seems like it has a very steep learning curve. There are, I didn't count them, but there are maybe 10 different roles that you can have. You can be a villager, you can be a saint, you can be the wolf, you can be a turncloak, you can be a gossiper, you can be all these different roles, and in each role has different, for lack of a better word, abilities or functions and uses. And depending on what role you have and the communication that you have talking to people in real time and trying to suss out whether they're lying or telling the truth, it has this real kind of draw to it, because you're really interacting with people. Like all 8 microphones are open and people are talking, and in every game I've been in, there hasn't been a troll or as I learned in talking to you guys, there's a griefer. I've never heard that term before. I haven't come across any people like that are trying to be disruptive. So it's like you're playing with 8 people in real life, except their digital avatars are right there, and of course the scale, the characters they look real. You can lean forward and talk, and their character will lean forward and talk, and their little mouths are moving. And
quick question. I would think that if you had 8 people like that and they're all talking, that it would get really, like, everybody would be talking over everybody else and get real chaotic. Does that happen, or?
Well, it's sort of organically, things kind of settle in. It does happen from time to time, but there's usually always one kind of super outgoing person that's playing that can kind of be the ringleader, which I also believe is one of the roles that you can be in the game. And it's just kind of things kind of happen organically, and things settle in. Like it wasn't really this major problem, because I had the same thought. Like as soon as I started playing, and before the game gets going, you get a minute or 2 before the game goes quote unquote live, and during that time a lot of people are chatting, and so yeah, it's a very warranted concern, and I'm sure at times it's not overcome, but in all the cases between the rounds that I played and the rounds that I watched my wife play, things kind of organically settled out, and it wasn't a problem.
How good was the audio quality that you got when you're listening to all these other people?
It's internet chat. It doesn't sound any better or worse than all the other online games, really. It wasn't great. Like it wasn't as clear as talking to you guys right now. I wish it was, but it wasn't horrible or inaudible either. Well, all right. One other kind of problem with it though is it's very hard to watch someone that's in your house play this game, because if you have your TV speakers on, which you naturally would if someone's watching you, then that is picked up by the microphone in the headset, and everyone hears echo. So I had to basically mute it, and I turned it down real low. So it was very hard to kind of have someone watch you play this game at your house.
You could probably give them like headphones or something if you had it going through a stereo.
Yeah, or I guess you could get a headphone splitter and plug it straight into the PS VR little power port where you plug the headphones in, probably. But I didn't have any of that handy and wasn't really prepared. So other than that, I think it's it deserves some of the hype. I don't think I'll personally love it as much as a lot of people did, but I'm glad I got to experience it, and I want to play it more. And I imagine that I would fall really in love with it if I got good at it and really mastered all the roles and knew how to really leverage, social manipulation.
It'd be cool if they had a really short demo for this, because I think it's an interesting concept, but for me, it's like, I don't know. I mean, it might be something that I would really love, or something that it just doesn't work for me. And if they had a super short demo, I might be able to figure that out. I know that you got it via GameFly, so the real question is, as somebody that has GameFly, you're always kind of wondering, should I keep this game? Should I send it back, try to get something else? What is your current thought process with Werewolves Within? Are you going to keep it for a few more days, or?
I'm probably going to keep it for maybe a couple more weeks. There really isn't. So all the games that are available on GameFly right now are the ones that were at launch, and then the few that have come out since launch, which I believe is just Eagle Flight and Werewolves Within. So there really isn't anything else that I haven't gotten to that's available there. I also received Loading Human, but I haven't played it yet, so I'm not going to talk about it now. So I don't really have anything. The only other thing I kind of want to play is the Tomb Raider VR add-on that's in Rise of the Tomb Raider. So depending on how Loading Human is, I'll send this or Werewolves back to try that out. So if nothing else comes out, then I'll probably be keeping Werewolves for a while.
You know, the Tomb Raider game, I thought about grabbing that from Redbox, because I think Redbox has it. So you could just do like a 1 day. It's really short from what I understand, the VR thing that Tomb Raider has going. So it might be something you could just Redbox.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because with GameFly, you lose, 3-4 days sending it there, and another 3-4 days on the return trip. So Redbox is probably far more practical on that one.
Yeah, I wish VR was like super, super ridiculously popular, where we could actually get VR games at Redbox, but that's going to take some time. Okay, so why don't we turn it over to Gary? Gary, I know you haven't been playing a ton of stuff, but you mentioned that you finished a few games. Maybe you have a few thoughts about that.
Yeah, so I managed to get finished with Arizona Sunshine and Super Hot, and also A Chair in a Room, which I've been playing for a while, but only in very short bursts. So it took me a while to get through that game. But yeah, I finished all 3 of these games, and I think they're all fantastic. Each one of them has been a pleasure to play all the way through. It's not very often, I mean, not so much with VR, because VR games are shorter, but it's not very often I generally finish games all the way through. I mean, monitor type games. I mean, I've finished The Witcher 3, which was a very big game, and sort of a handful of others really, but I generally just play them until I'm bored of them, and then I'll lose interest. But with VR games, I've been playing through quite a few actually, generally because of the length. But Arizona Sunshine is probably my favorite of the 3, I would say, in total, although I've got to say the ending was a little bit underwhelming for me. I won't spoil the ending or go into it a great deal, but yeah, I was a little bit disappointed by that. But as a game, I think it's great. And as soon as I finished it, I was considering just starting it all over again and just playing straight through it again, because it's got just being in that world, I think, it's just in a pleasant place to be, even though you've got all these zombies around you. It's just a nice place to be with the sunshine out, and you're just exploring all these different little nooks and crannies, trying to get all the collectibles and things like that. It's a great game. I really enjoyed it.
Hey, quick question before you go to the next one. Arizona Sunshine. So you know that scene where you're at the canyon, and right before you go into the mine, and then you actually go into the mine, and you actually have darkness, and you have your flashlight. Is that like, how far through the game is that part? Like when you first get into the mine, would you say that's like halfway through the game, 75% of the way through the game? I've heard it's short.
Yeah, it's quite a short game. Yeah, I'd probably say that was around about halfway through the game. it's difficult because when it first came out, I got to that section quite quickly because I was just playing it all the time. So the second half took me a little bit longer. So it's difficult to say without in a factual way whether that is halfway or not. But I'd say roughly halfway from my memory, yeah. It's not a very long game at all, and that's another thing that was a little bit disappointed by. Although I knew that going in, so I'd love a sequel to be brought out, or maybe some kind of expansion. But yeah, the other one that I was going to talk about is Super Hot, and again, very short. This is very short, and even more disappointing, really, just the length of it, because I was enjoying this game so much. I found it difficult to put this game down. Whenever it was time to finish playing VR, I was struggling because there's a try one more time aspect to this game, where you're in these short little sections of game, and it's only very small mistakes that can make you die and go back to the start of the section. So you just think, well, I know where I went wrong that time, so I definitely won't make that kind of mistake again. And you just go through it again and again. And it's just an addictive game. I think that's the best way I can describe it. It's a very addictive game, and it was again a pleasure to play that game. I never got bored of it at any point, and there's certain subtle aspects of it as well. Just the whole sections where you're in the. I won't give anything away, but this game is split into distinct sort of sections where you're actually playing and where you're out and going into the next level, and all these aspects are found just added to the experience overall. But yeah, finally, a chair in a room, and this is one that we've spoken about again on the show quite a lot, so I won't go into it too long, but I did again really enjoy this game. I wouldn't say it's a pleasure to play this game quite so much as the other two, because I mean, it is horror, and it's psychological horror as well. It places you in situations which are not nice. There's just a general eeriness about this whole game going through it. And I can just reiterate what I've said before about that game, so I won't talk about it too long. But it's one of the, probably about, I don't know exactly how long this one is, probably about 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours, something like that, I would guess. And it's, yeah, again, fantastic. And I recommend people do pick that up if it's in a sale at all.
Did you, just curious, at the end of that game, you are staring into the light with the doctor or whatever talking to you, and then you get all of the explanation kind of force-fed down your throat. Did you make any sense of that?
I didn't. I'd sort of got a general gist of what was going on. When I mean, I don't know. Shall we talk spoilers just for a few minutes? But
I was just mostly just curious if you even understood it, like, because I don't think I followed it all that well, and I kind of went to Google an explanation to hear someone's take, and couldn't really find anyone that really understood it either. So
no, there is the sections where when she was talking about this, I'll just say quickly, I was thinking, which one am I? Because she talks about these two brothers, okay, and there's sections and there's parts of where she's talking about that, and I don't know which one I am. But then with the epilogue, again, just a small spoiler this, but with the epilogue of the game where you're reading the newspaper, and I actually read through that whole newspaper just to try and get a bit more of a gist of what was going on. It's still not particularly clear, but you can get a general understanding. But I did think about going on to Google. It's still on my to-do list, actually, just to see if anybody has got a better explanation of exactly what was going on. And
did you play the little add-on that came out a little bit later? It was a little, I don't want to say side mission, but do you know what I'm talking about? The little...
No, yeah, I don't actually know.
So there's there's like a little bonus episode. It's kind of, it's outside of the main game. And it's just a short little, I don't know, 20-minute kind of experience. It kind of takes place in the same universe, but you're not the same person, quote unquote. I don't know how to really even say that, but yeah, check out the little bonus episode as well.
Yeah, I'll have to give that a try. I didn't realize that was out there, but yeah, I'll keep a lookout for that. But yeah, just quickly as well, one other thing I just want to mention with what I've been playing, I actually won a competition on Reddit for a game called The Thrill of the Fight. So I went in for this competition, and it's a boxing game. I didn't know too much about it. I didn't really actually have that much interest in a boxing game before I tried this, if I'm being honest. So, but I put it in, and I've only played maybe 20 minutes, if that, really. I've played sort of one fight, and this game, it's good, and it's there's not a lot to it. It's a boxing game, of course, but there's certain aspects that I really like. And before I played this boxing game, I was just thinking, how can you really do this where it feels satisfying? Because you're not hitting anything in front of you, you're just hitting air. But there is within the VR game, it's sort of, you do get some kind of weight behind your punches, and there's good sound to it, and I think that helps with just feeling like you are punching this dude who's coming towards you in front of you. And it's an enjoyable game from what I've played so far. I don't know how much there is to it beyond what I've played. And just one other thing, if you want to talk about accidental exercise, this is absolutely top of the list for me. I mean, I didn't realize these boxers are really, really fit. I didn't realize because I was absolutely shattered after about, I don't even know how long this fight took, probably 5 minutes, if that. And I tell you, yeah, my heart rate was through the roof playing this game.
Yeah. Hey, do you guys remember PlayStation Move? There was a game. Remember when the PlayStation Move was like a big thing and they had the camera and the Move controllers? There was a game called The Fight.
Yes, I love that game.
Yeah, and you're punching with the Move controllers. Oh my God, dude, you'd play that and your arms would be so tired. And then when this, the thrill of the fight, I remember early on in the Vive days, the developer of this game, he had a short little demo for it. And it wasn't on Steam. You had to like go to some website or something to download it. And I tried it and it was, yeah, wow. You start punching around and you don't realize later on, you're like, oh my God, my arms are so sore.
Yep.
Yeah.
I played it too. I thought it was real clever how they, how you hold the controllers. Like, you know, you kind of hold them out to the side with kind of your fingers spread a little bit.
Yeah.
So that you can do the curving of your,
there's a few different ways. It's got a few settings of how you can have the controllers. And then also it's got an option where you can manually select the position of your gloves as well. So you can have them exactly how you want them. I'll feel comfortable and natural.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was just one other thing I quickly wanted to mention. I say I've not really played it too long, so I may mention it again on another show just to give a more overview of what it's about.
Alrighty. And for me, I really haven't played much. I don't have like a new game or anything to talk about. What I can talk about a little bit is I've been kind of screwing around on the side trying to do some videos, like let's play type videos of playing some Vive games. And I just tried a PlayStation VR one as well. And it's interesting because part of it is incredibly easy to do. You download the software, OBS, it's free software, right? And you have like an external like a webcam, and you can plug that in. You can get the webcam image. You can get the image from your Vive, where you kind of see what you're doing with your controllers, first person style. And then you also get the image of the game. And so I've been kind of screwing around with that. And we have put one video up on our channel, Racket NX. So if anybody wants to check that out, they can go ahead and check it out. One thing I will say, though, is the Vive microphone. I'm using the Vive microphone for this, and the Vive microphone is less than ideal. So on a lot of my Vive Let's Plays, you have to deal with the fact that there's like breathing noises and there isn't a pop filter and stuff. So I got to play around with that, figure something out. Might have to actually just ditch that microphone completely and try to get some other type of external mic to use. I've also done it with PlayStation VR. PlayStation VR is interesting because you can use the built-in features of PlayStation VR to do your own recording there. And it actually works quite well. The microphone is way better. Like I did a short little video where I'm playing Super Hypercube, and the mic quality is like night and day compared with the HTC Vive. I honestly didn't know how bad the HTC Vive's commentary audio was until I did the PlayStation one. And then I'm like, oh, wow, the HTC Vive commentary does sound really bad. I'm gonna have to figure out a different way to do this. But with PlayStation VR, the only downside is even though you're using the camera, the resources of the camera is completely dedicated to dealing with PlayStation VR. So you can't also get a camera shot. So if you want a camera shot while you're doing PlayStation VR, you have to use an external camera. And then if you're doing that, you also really kind of need to use like a capture card to do it. So I've been kind of screwing around with this, but basically what I want to say to any of our listeners out there is go ahead and check out our YouTube channel, because we will be posting some of these Let's Play videos. And it's totally unprofessional. I'm not any kind of an entertainer. I'm not super spastic and like overly like, yeah, whoa, this is awesome, bros. You know, I'm not going to be all crazy and stuff. So I don't know how entertaining it is, but basically I'm screwing around with it. And I think Gary and Steve are going to try screwing around with it a little bit too. So hopefully we'll get some stuff on there and you guys can check it out. And hopefully it'll get better and better. But basically just been screwing around with the Let's Play stuff.
Yeah, it's all interesting to watch some of these videos that you've done, actually, and we will be posting some more of them on the YouTube channel over the next few days and weeks. But yeah, just get an overview of how different people play these games as well. I think the videos, the value of the videos from my point of view is just watching people play the game and just see what they get out of it. Because I actually watch, because I enjoy that game that you've mentioned before, Racket NX. I do enjoy that game, but seeing you play it and seeing you play through and try and get your high score actually inspired me to go back into it again and try it again. So I played a little bit of Racket NX. So I think it just helps seeing people go through some of these games, describe their experience that they're having within this game, and it can make you want to try some of these as well that you've may just glossed over.
Yeah, you know, one of the fun things about doing like a Let's Play too is that if you're playing a horror game, it's a great way to get you through the horror game, because you can talk while you're playing and it actually kind of calms you down and stuff. So a lot of times when I'm in there, I'll just kind of like, I almost have an internal dialogue anyway, you know, when I'm playing some of these games. So it's just, I need to remember, okay, keep talking, you know, always talk about what you're doing and stuff. And it's kind of fun when you try a new experience and you're just like, oh, I'm seeing this, I'm doing this, I guess you can pick up this. You just kind of walk through it. So we're just going to experiment with it. And if you guys like it, awesome. If not, you know, no big deal. All righty. Well, I guess that pretty much does it for episode 16. Does anybody have anything else they want to mention before we get out of here?
No, I think that's everything I had.
All right. And we always, of course, ask you, if possible, leave a comment on our YouTube channel or possibly leave a review on iTunes for us or any of the other podcasting services. That helps us out a lot. And we do Reddit posts when we launch a video usually. And if you want to make a comment there, that's great as well. So all the feedback helps. For us to continue to do this and want to do this, the feedback is definitely something we look forward to know that there's people out there that enjoy this stuff. But we're going to try to keep bringing it to you guys anyway. So if you have any questions for us, you can always shoot us a question at vrroundtable@gmail.com, and you could send us a question or comment that way. But that's basically going to do it for episode 16 of VR Roundtable. And remember, check out the channel for our Let's Plays, and we'll have another regular episode of VR Roundtable probably in about a week. So we'll see you guys then. Take it easy.
Cheers. Bye, guys.
Happy New Year.